when the business was doing really well, we weren't doing well personally. One thing we definitely didn't get right was bringing business home. Home became business. Business was business. It was all business. Weekend was business. Holidays were business. There was no personal and business separation. There was just way too much business.
Hey guys, today I'm speaking to Christen Clarey from the accounts department.
If you're thinking about starting a business, reach out to people who are doing that exact thing that you want to do and pick their brain. Yeah, people are willing to help. People are willing to assist you and share their knowledge. I think it also makes people feel good when they can help. And that's what I found, and I've met some great people along the way. If I hadn't spoke to someone who said, Christen, get your processes in place before you employ someone, I'd be in a very different situation now.
Christen, thank you for joining the All Business Baby podcast. To start, could I get you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks for having me, Phil. I really appreciate it. My first time on a podcast, so very excited. Woo! My cherry has been popped.
See how you go.
So my name is Christen, and I own a business called the Accounts Department, and we specialise in bookkeeping for tradies. So offering them bookkeeping, payroll, and BAS services and everything in between.
Yeah, you said bookkeeping for tradies. That must be really, really fun dealing with tradies because I've dealt with some of them in my time. They're not the best clients. How do you deal with dealing with tradies? Clients?
So I suppose, to be honest, I love it. Something about tradies, I find that they are super down to earth. And once you kind of break down the walls of they're a bit embarrassed of how their business actually is looking, they are just really honest guys that want to go out, do a great job, do what they love doing, and have their business looked after. So I find that connecting with them on that personal level definitely helps in building the business relationship. So I absolutely love all of my tradie clients, bar a couple, but that's okay.
we won't name who it is, but
you know
they know who they are. They always know who they are, really.
No, but to be honest, those initial conversations and getting them across the line is usually the hardest part. But once they're on board, we have such a great relationship. And just knowing that the back end of their business is looked after, I guess creates that relationship as well. So
yeah, it's big things. I think the key point there you probably mentioned is the transparency and the open communication at the start of what they should expect and what they need to do.
Definitely.
Helps them get over the line.
And getting the wives out of the picture.
Yeah, that's a good one. But I'd say there's a lot of tradies out there, and maybe we're just seeing different tradies, Christen. Maybe we're just seeing different tradies.
I think for me, the difference with my business is I'm working with them almost on a daily to weekly basis. So I suppose having that touch point and communicating with them so frequently and finding ways to communicate with them that works for them. So for me, it's a WhatsApp chat, which is so basic, but they don't have to open their emails. Emails are daunting to them. They don't want to hear about it.
Now,
everyone's on WhatsApp.
Makes it easy.
I think that small change in my business made a huge difference to the relationship with my tradies. So
yes, and everyone's on it. No, I hear you. You've got to find a point of difference, and I think for us, it's professional service anyway. Would be communication. That's main.
It's
that's
key.
The main thing. All right. Well, look. Before we get into the business side of things, I'd really love you to share more about yourself and your journey to business. Could you enlighten us, please?
Yeah. So I feel like it's one that I kind of fell into, I guess you could say. If I went all the way back, it probably started when I was in high school. So my parents were couriers, and since the age of 13, every school holidays I would be out with my mom, going on a run, helping her with deliveries. So after I was getting close to finishing year 10, I said to my parents, like, this isn't something I want to do. I don't want to continue school. I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work. So I got my license, and during when I was, I suppose, learning to drive, I was still working with my mum full time. So left school at 15, worked with my mum full time. And then I approached DHL where she was working and asked if there was any opportunities for me. So I had my red peas. Yay, they trusted me. They knew me because I'd been there since I was basically a child.
Yep.
And I was about 13.
Legally though, you weren't on the payroll, right? Yeah.
Look, Mum was swinging me a few dollars here and there. Okay. But I had my own courier route. So that was my first experience as a business owner, I suppose. I was a contractor.
Wow. Well, before you get into that, actually, I'm curious to understand what that conversation was like with your parents at the age of 15 saying, hey, I don't want to go to school anymore.
Yeah. I suppose, to be honest, I'm from a working class family. I grew up in Western Sydney, and university was something my parents had never heard of. School was something that wasn't huge on their priority list either. So I suppose in one way I'm grateful. Looking back, I wouldn't have minded if they probably applied a bit of pressure to stay at school. I definitely value education, but I didn't so much then, and it's not something my parents really put a lot of value on either. My dad left school when he was 13 and went out to work, faked his age and went to work, so I kind of followed in his footsteps, I guess. Well,
I guess it was good that you did tell them you didn't want to go to school, but you said I wanted to work.
Yes.
That would have been good to hear.
Yeah, so I suppose the value that my dad always said is if you're not going to go to school, you have to work. And my dad always instilled the value of nothing in life is free. We have to work for it, and hard work was always his kind of foundation. And so I grew up on that. From him. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So you got your license and you've got your first job at DHL.
Had my courier route. So that was my first Christen Clarey Pty Ltd.
Yeah, your first
I was ready to go.
Yep.
So I suppose I was responsible for looking after my entire route. Which meant being at the warehouse at 5 and getting home around 8. So they were really long hours, and then coming home and doing my own bookkeeping, invoicing, and paying myself. I was also then looking after my mum's bookkeeping. So I suppose my bookkeeping
business started growing
back then. Long story short, I ended up through my courier days meeting someone, moving in and starting a life there. He was in business, and after we got married, he asked me to join the business. So it was an invoice financing business, which was a completely new, I suppose.
You're not driving around.
I wasn't driving around. I had never used Excel. I'd barely even used a computer because using computers at school, at my time, it wasn't a thing. We were still, using pen and paper.
That's right.
So I'm not that old, but...
Did you get your pen license though?
I did. Yeah, I was in year 4 and I was so excited. So got my pen license.
I never got my pen license. It's too ugly.
Thank God for computers now.
That's right. But so no computers.
Yeah, so I had never really used a computer. So to be honest, hours spent on YouTube watching how to use a pivot table, how to do formulas, and that got me a long way. So I think a value of mine, or I'm not sure if you'd call it a value, but for me, I really believe that if I apply myself, I will be able to learn what to do. So there's always a bit of fear, but I know if I just... go and
focused on it.
YouTube is amazing.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there on what to do, how to do it, follow it, apply it, and just keep learning. So, so I joined the business, and initially I started to assist with the operations side of the business. I ended up taking it from an entire paper-based company to all digitally...
To the cloud. All the way up there.
All the way up there. So completely digitalized it. So it was a very old school run business. They would literally print off every single invoice that they were buying. Then they would print the notice of assignment. They would print the notice of assignment and then fax it to the debtor.
Yeah.
So it was very old school. Old school. I had never seen a fax machine before. They even had a typewriter there if an invoice needed to be amended.
Yeah, that's really old. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I suppose I got to see a lot of the behind the scenes working of a business through that experience, from being in the office admin to managing the cash flow for buying invoices, to paying investors their interest every month. We got to a point where we were buying around $60 million a year in invoices. I can't exactly remember how the connection occurred, but a merchant bank in London approached my then husband and inquired about acquiring the business. So
Jackpot, right?
Jackpot. Well, now the stress begins.
Right.
So we went from a small team of, we know each other, we're familiar, we're all friends and buddies, to dealing with what
Corporates.
seemed to be, London, people in London, a merchant bank in London. I went over there a few times and presented the operations of our business, how everything works, and just took them through step by step exactly what we do to buy an invoice here in Australia. My husband dealt with the financial side of it, and I was looking after the operations side. So that all went through. They ended up acquiring 80% of the business. They came out to Australia. We went there, but they were a listed company. So again, it was all new to me, something I had never experienced. And
a lot of learning for you.
Lots of learning. Lots of stress, lots of fear, but I definitely took it in my stride to approach it and work with it. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I then was responsible for presenting our monthly figures to the board, which was another new experience. Very daunting, and it was usually late at night for us because... It was
early morning
for them. And then because they were a publicly listed company and us being a subsidiary, we had to be audited. Now, the word auditing freaked me out, but we had wonderful auditors here in Australia who I still keep in touch with today.
Yeah, good.
And we worked with the auditors in London as well, just to ensure that everything was transparent and they were getting the information that they required. So they were usually long periods. They would last 3 months, if not more, if you included the prep before the audit. So that, again, it's experience that I'm just so grateful I had. And I suppose in one way it's led me to where I am. For the invoice financing, we were specialising in civil construction and labour hire, as well as smash repair. So when the marriage started to fail, I was thinking, how can I take the experience that I've got and apply it to something that I love? So I wouldn't say invoice financing was something that I loved. It required...
Paid the bills.
Well, it was all about chasing money. So, and that's not always a fun part to be. Yeah. So, I worked in the business for just over a year after the marriage had started to... I suppose when the marriage came to an end, I worked in the business still for a year, which was great. We had a great team, and I absolutely loved that part. No regrets there. But I thought it was time to move on and focus on my life and what I wanted to do next. Through my experience of working with the civil construction businesses and labour hire, I saw that they constantly struggled with getting the information right. So in order to buy an invoice, we needed the correct supporting documentation. Now that seems very straightforward. You have a timesheet, you have an invoice. Somehow the timesheet would never ever match the invoice. And I thought, maybe this is something I know how to streamline this. I know how to do this. This is something I can help businesses with. So I was sitting at my dinner table and I thought, what's a good name for a business? And it just kind of started there. And I thought, it's an accounts department. I am the accounts department, and that's where my business name came from. So
that makes sense.
The accounts department pretty much does that. Make sure the timesheet matches the invoice is reconciled in Xero, the numbers balance, the P&L balances, the balance sheet balances, and it kind of went from there.
Yeah, well, so I guess working with your ex-husband at the time, that's given you or opened up a lot of doors in terms of experience of you getting the commercial experience, but also how to run a business itself.
Absolutely.
And working with those type of clients in those specific industry have now led you to the accounts department, where you specialise in collecting debt now for civil and construction businesses, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I will forever be grateful for him opening those doors for me and I guess trusting me to come into the business and take on that side of it. So I suppose when I started my business, my initial thought wasn't tradies, it was civil construction. And there is a difference. I thought I would be more focusing on the subcontractors who are needing to supply their timesheet and invoices to the tier 1 and tier 2 businesses that they were working for, because that was my experience.
But that leads you, or getting into business, you think about one thing and that's the direction you want to go, but you meet someone or you meet different people or you get a new client somewhere or somehow, and it just changes the direction of the business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose once I separated from the business with my ex-husband, I ended up contracting to a civil construction business. So it was brilliant. It was exactly what I wanted to do. And that ended up opening up some more doors for me. I then thought, in order to grow this business, aside from a lot of procrastination, I need to put myself out there. No one knows about me. My circle at the time was quite small when I look at what it is now. So I engaged a marketing company to build a website for me, build my brand, I guess. And through that, I was able to identify the exact type of client that I was looking for. And it wasn't just the civil construction business. It was the building and construction businesses. I was able to niche down, identify who that person was, what do they look like, what does their business size look like, and what are they struggling with. And I suppose working with them really helped me get clear on my messaging and what it was that I was looking for. Then I started on social media and Instagram. And I'm going to put it out there. My partner said, "Are you sure Instagram will even work?" And I'm like, let's just try.
Stop hating.
Let's try. Yeah. He'll hate me for saying that, but I said, let's just try it. And then a builder reached out to me and I thought,
bloody hell, that's all you needed. Yeah.
What is that? Yeah, that's all. And it's just grown from there. So I'm so grateful for him because he's given me 5 clients so far, like 3 referrals.
Oh, that's amazing. I'd say the biggest tip that I hear from what you've just said is when you do start business, the main thing is to get into or to start the marketing investment, because then that's going to give you, and for yourself, it gives you clarity on what you're actually wanting to do and focusing on, or what you want to focus on. I found that sort of to be the same experience I had as well, where being an accountant, starting your own accounting firm, you kind of just do everything. Then I got into marketing, or invested a bit of time and thought process around all that. What do I actually want to, who do I want to target? And I thought, bloody hell, I hate tax. I hate it.
Yeah.
That made me just really shift the business and go, let's focus on the CFO and business advisory side of things for the last few years, which is what I've been doing now. And that really helped me get clarity on how or what I actually wanted to do. So very important point that you brought up there. So thanks for sharing. I wanted to ask you about, because I know I've known you for some time now, and it's common that we see tradies have their wife brought into the business, but not even just tradies. I think in any business which you've experienced, you bring your wife in because they're generally the first person you may turn to for support and help. Can you touch on your first experience in business with your then husband? You know, what was that kind of dynamic like, being husband and wife, but also being business partners? Was the business a reason why you guys, that marriage failed, or what kind of happened?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I think initially, we come together because we've both got different skill sets that we believe will complement each other and then grow the business. Things that I think we did right were having clear role separations. So I was responsible for a particular area of the business and I would report that to him, and he would focus on his side. So it took a little bit, but we realized we can't be stepping on each other's toes. Who's doing what? Who do the team turn to when they need support in a particular area? So something we did get right from almost the very start was having a clear role separation. One thing we definitely didn't get right was bringing business home. So home became business. Business was business. It was all business. Weekend was business. Holidays were business.
Right. There was no sort of personal space.
There was no personal and business separation. So when the business was doing really well, we weren't doing well personally. But it kind of took a while to realize that, because every waking moment was talking about what's going on today. And there's always struggles in business. And funnily enough, prior to the acquisition with London, cash flow was our struggle, even though that's what we were actually solving for our clients. So it's kind of funny.
Ironic.
So I suppose there was always a lot of stress around that. But I think any advice to couples who are working together would be to ensure you've got that time together that is not about work. And it's really hard when you're in business. Like even for me now with my now partner, I'm always talking to him about my business, but having that time together where it's hard. Not,
and I think in your situation as well, you actually grew it to a very sizable business.
Yes.
Like we were talking $60 million in financing. That's nothing to
sneeze at. No.
Yeah, that's right. So it's quite a lot. So obviously when you're talking about how the business just consumed your life, you can gather why because of the size.
And we still remained a relatively small team. There was only ever 3 of us in the office and or 4 of us. And my husband doing all the back end, the finances and managing the investors.
Yeah.
So
maybe the lesson is to hire more staff at the time.
hire more staff. He was very big
can't
on
do it all.
very big on keeping everything. I don't want to say on a shoestring, but
Fair enough,
it
yeah.
was, just what we needed. So but yeah, it
worked. It was successful and it was sold.
It wasn't. We'll cut that part.
Yeah. Okay.
It ended up failing, but
Right.
yeah, that's another story. But yeah, the business, the personal side of it definitely took a hit because there was just way too much business. It's not something I would recommend unless there is a clear direction on who does what you do when you get home, and I suppose in turn an exit strategy eventually, right?
Yeah.
So what are we working towards? We didn't have that. We didn't have what each other were working towards, and then it was just business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there was no romance. It was business. And I saw him like that too.
Yeah.
So I reported to him. So
Yeah, it's like, it would have been a hard dynamic, right? He'd been the boss, and I'm assuming you would have been the boss at home. It's like, how does that work? It's generally what happens.
Yeah, he was the boss all around. So,
Okay.
Yeah, but it's funny because the relationship was actually very cold because it was more like I was going home with my boss.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. It was like, imagine taking your staff home with you.
Yeah, no.
It was no one wants that.
That's
so something I suppose I see with my clients, and it's huge in small businesses, is exactly that.
Which happens a lot now, and I think you make a good point when I look at your social media. Sometimes it's and we speak. A lot of tradies and a lot of business owners are getting their wives who don't have the experience.
Yes.
They get thrown into the deep end, and a lot of the reason why maybe the business fails or potentially the marriage fails is because now you've brought, that business into, or you've mixed business in your personal space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And initially everyone has good intentions, but over time that can fade. And you forget, because when you're running a business, the goalpost always moves.
Yeah.
And it's always the business. And you don't stop to think about the present, each other, your family.
Definitely.
I put my hand up. That's happened to me. And I'm trying to be more conscious about those things. But yeah, no, thanks for sharing that experience and journey. I think there's a lot of people out there running a family business, and if you're finding it hard to separate, at least I think the first step would be to communicate.
Definitely.
To actually stop and say, hey, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I see a lot with especially my tradie clients is it's either the wife offers to help or the husband asks for some help. And initially that's okay. But then the wife becomes responsible for what's actually going on with the numbers. Where are we? Where are we sitting financially? Why can't we afford to pay that bill? And suddenly it becomes her responsibility, and it's her fault why things aren't working, because why didn't she communicate that?
Starts to get emotional.
Yeah.
You start taking out, you start directing your tone toward, you start communicating her with a incorrect tone or
exactly,
something like that.
And you have this expectation on her that she may not even have this experience and even know how to really answer you. And half the time I see, or more than half the time, sadly, is that the numbers aren't clear because, and I don't want to bring bookkeeping into it, but the bookkeeping isn't completed correctly. It's not done correctly. So they can't possibly know where things are up to.
And I think with technology, to your point, with technology like Xero, for example, I think most people probably think they know how to do the bookkeeping.
Yes.
And look, it's made it a lot easier for sure, but
absolutely,
you still need to have the technical understanding to get it correct. Example, I had a client whose wife was doing the numbers for the past 6-7 years. He reached out a year ago. He came over and he said, I don't know that these numbers are right. The accountant's stuffing things up. And I was like, let's check it. We looked at the numbers initially and was like, this is the file's a mess. It's a complete mess.
Yeah.
Who's doing the accounts?
And then she gets thrown under the bus.
Accountant is like, oh, it's my wife. She does all the bookkeeping. I was like, yeah, shit, your wife's effed it. So he requested like a full historical review, and initially the wife, with great intentions, was helping out and was doing things correctly the first time around or the first year, but she got slack. You have 3 kids. They had 3 kids.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't have time to do those things, which you could have easily paid someone a few $1,000s. A little bit more than that maybe per year, done correct, right?
Yeah.
Now he's paying thousands of dollars now just to see if there's an issue.
Yeah.
Then to fix it. So very costly, and Very important that if you are working together, maybe, depending on the roles, clearly define the roles, but two, also make sure that you've got space or you're separating your business and personal space.
Absolutely. And I think having someone who can give you the right information is so important, especially as a small business. Cash flow is really important. Yeah. Profitability is obviously important. If your wife can't even really tell you, if it is your wife that you've got doing the books and she can't tell you, you outsource it. Yeah. You can always have an honest chat with that person. They're outsourced. They're at arm's length. There's no emotional connection.
You don't want to lie in bed talking about it. Yeah. Save your marriage as well. Outsource
Save your marriage, outsource it.
Get rid of it. Delegate.
Do something else that's not going to cause conflict.
That's right. Awesome stuff. So, Christen, I think you're in your second year of business. Could you share with the audience, congratulations, could you share with the audience your experience over the first and second year, and I guess a tip that you could share to everyone about that experience? Yeah,
so my first year I feel like involved a lot of procrastination and self-doubt. Can I do this? Will anyone even want to work with me? Where do I start? All of the questions and the self-doubt. And once I essentially got over myself, that's when things started to move along. And that's when I engaged a marketing company to help me with my branding and my messaging, engaged someone to help with my social media and a direction on what exactly that is going to look like. And then my clients started to come from there. The first year, I had its challenges, but it was really me who was standing in my own way. I was the main challenge. I was.
Myself looking at the mirror.
And I had all the reasons in the world why I couldn't do it. Yeah. And then suddenly, I couldn't do it because I didn't have a website. So, then I went and spent the money to have a website. And in hindsight, that was probably the best thing I did because I spoke with the agency who walked me through exactly what I would be.
Once you make that financial commitment, you're like, oh shit, it's real.
It's real.
I've got to do it. So you've got to, I guess, when you pay for something, I guess you would see the value more.
Because before that, I was looking on Canva and I was playing around with logos and I was like, oh, that's cute. But, who's going to buy from me with that?
Yeah, that's right.
So, the first year was, to be honest, a lot of that and setting up the business and talking myself into the fact that I can actually do it. And the second year, which I'm in now, officially has, it's been great. It's been a lot of growth, both in the business and myself personally. Second one on its way. Yep. First one was my motivator. This one is just coming along for the ride. And I just employed my first staff member about 3 months ago.
Excellent.
So at the start of this year, I set myself a sales target to meet by December. I ended up meeting that in August. Yay. But I suppose in hindsight, again, it's my self-doubt. I set the target probably low.
Too low.
Because how did I reach it in 8 months? It's not because I'm a gun. It's because...
Maybe.
Maybe a little bit. No, it's because...
You got to pat yourself on the back sometimes as well.
We do. But it was definitely a bit of self-doubt and I wanted to set realistic figures and I reached it, which meant that I ended up being able to employ someone sooner than what I had planned. And then with the second one on the way, I definitely needed perfect timing. So it all worked out. So that's my second year of business has been really exciting. It feels like a business.
That's good. And would you say it's like it's become a lot easier to run the business in the second year?
Yeah, in a way.
Even with everything that's going on?
Yeah, in a way it has. So I think the biggest things that I did in my first year was constantly reaching out to people who were either doing something similar to me, were expertise or had the expertise in what I needed. Yep. So when I was looking to start my bookkeeping business, I jumped on Instagram and was reaching out to bookkeepers. How did you do it? What did you do? I didn't have my BAS agent registration completed. So I reached out to someone. How did you do it? What do you have any tips? So that really was
that's awesome.
I suppose that's a huge tip I would give to anyone. If you're thinking about starting a business, reach out to people who are doing that exact thing that you want to do and pick their brain. Yeah, people are willing to help. People are willing to assist you and share their knowledge. I think it also makes people feel good when they can help. And that's what I found, and I've met some great people along the way. The second year has been all about processes. So I suppose growth doesn't come without its challenges, but if I hadn't spoke to someone who said, Christen, get your processes in place before you employ someone, I'd be in a very different situation now. So documenting those processes, having a good workflow management software that can help you with that. It changed bringing someone on and being able to train them because everything was documented. So
yeah, it's a game changer. Once you can create a standard operating of, a standard operating procedure, does so much for your business, especially when it comes to hiring staff, because bloody hell, when you think about the lag time when you actually hire the person to when they actually can add value, that's potentially 3-6 months maybe.
Yeah, and if you don't have your processes in place, it could be longer and
or if you hire them and they decide to leave you, you're screwed and you got to look for another one and you're like, where's all my processes? So that's an excellent tip for anyone looking to grow.
Yes.
Standardize things that you're doing, your processes within your business, whether that's the back office, the sales, the marketing, whatever it may be.
Yes.
You just got to do that, work at it one at a time.
Absolutely. And I think that was the thing that I would stay up late doing is, you're working in the business during the day, but then on the business of a night. And getting those processes, it was definitely time well spent.
Yay. So you got free time now, so you don't have to do that anymore.
Kind of.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So you're now, I guess, to some you'd probably be like a super mum because you're running your own business. You've got one little, probably I'm assuming, toddler that just runs around and causes a mark, right?
Yes.
You've got another one on the way, and then you got your partner as well. How are you managing, balancing and finding time to do all these things?
Yes. So I read something once where it said nothing will ever be completely balanced. And so the sooner you realize that, the more at ease you will be. So one day you might be a super mum, the next day you're not. One day you're doing well at business, the next day you're struggling. So I think I try and take most days as they come. I definitely have a plan. I am so routine driven. I must get up at the same time every day, go to the gym 4 times a week at the same time, come home, get my son ready. So how I do it, we can't do everything by ourselves.
Yep.
So I have a nanny that comes in the morning to help me and she really helps, so I can go to the gym and I go with my partner so we can both go and spend time not being mum and dad.
Me and us time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whilst we're doing that, she's at home folding the washing and making sure that things are in order at home so that once we get back, we get our son ready, spend some time with him, and he goes to daycare. And then I come back and it's straight into business, but the house is tidy. The washing is done.
You've got a good environment.
You've got a good environment, clear space, clear mind. So definitely accepting help. I think something I hear from mums is, I don't want to ask for help because it will seem like I'm struggling or, I want to seem like this, where I think just reaching out, asking for help, you never know who's there. If there's no one around, like my parents are still working and my partner's parents are in Ireland, so they're not there for that type of support. Yeah, how dare they? So if that means paying for it, pay for it. It's so worth it. And whatever that looks like for you, if that means getting a cleaner in once a week, we'll do it. So, I guess most days are a little bit of a juggle or struggle. I don't know why those 2 words rhyme. I think it's meant to be.
Because you're also a rapper, aren't you, in your past life?
I am in my past life a bit of a rapper. So, it's just having a clear routine. And again, with my partner now, we have a clear, and I know it sounds silly, but we each have our own roles. So he is absolutely incredible. He makes breakfast, dinner, cleans.
What a dream.
What do I do? I don't know.
What are you doing?
But what am I doing? But it's very clear what each other are doing pretty much all hours of the day. So we're very clear on that. Our communication is spot on. There's nothing I would change with that. And I think that just goes across all relationships. Communication is what's going to get you to where you need to be, I think.
Yeah, I've always said communication's the key to every successful relationship. I don't always practice it at times, but, because sometimes, you get caught up with whatever you're doing, you just forget to communicate. And, part of that's sitting there and listening as well.
Yeah.
And understanding what's going on and then actually being able to respond properly. So, there are times maybe you've been it, but, we're talking I'm talking to my significant other, Jen, and she's talking to me and my mind wanders off thinking about business, right?
Yeah. That still happens, but we just don't make it so obvious now.
You can play
better
it.
at hiding it.
Yeah, you can play it.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So to wrap up, I guess, now that you're running your own business, you've got free time, do you feel like it's given you everything you wanted personally?
Yeah, definitely. Business? So it's definitely given me everything I've wanted and more, especially since hiring someone. That was a big game changer for me because, I was spending 12 hours a day on my laptop. Having someone there to support my clients in areas that they need, and, it's not reliant on just me anymore. Absolutely. So I love my business. I take it everywhere with me, whether I'm traveling overseas
it's another baby.
It's my baby. My laptop will be on my hospital bag checklist, no doubt, for number 2. So it's definitely given me the financial freedom and time freedom. I'm not concerned about having another child and growing my family.
Yep.
I've done it with 1, 2. I'm probably being a bit naive, but that's kind of how I approach things. So it will definitely work out.
Yeah, and look, the more kids you have, the less you care about them. So you can just focus on the business, and always focus on that. But no, it's good to hear. So obviously you've got the business. It's given you that financial freedom. It's given you that time freedom. Maybe not necessarily the mind freedom because you're still trying to grow it. But as you're saying, you and that hits deep as well because you can never find the right balance. And once you just let go of it, I think that's good because, the past year I've been thinking about where my business has been at, and I was used to working 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah. Now it's down to 20, 30 hours a week. And it was a sudden shift in hours that I'm putting into this business, but it was finding that mindset or the balance in my mindset to go, hey, it's okay. People are still alive. No one's dying, and just letting go. So I think finding the balance is key. I think the other thing you brought up earlier, or a theme that's come across, is asking for help, whether in business or at home or anywhere, just asking for help. You never know who's going to say yes. And
definitely,
naturally, we're human beings. We want to help others.
Yes. And I think also there's sometimes, and especially, my parents, they would never ask for help. They were too proud,
same.
If they ask for help, then they're weak.
Yeah.
And it's like, where did that come from?
That's why I don't ask for help.
If you're asking for help, soon enough you can then help others. And it just, you can help so many more people. Yep. It's been super valuable, and I'm never afraid to ask for help, for sure.
That's a good lesson. I wished I asked for help earlier in business because I think if I did, and to your point, asking someone that's done it before, you'd be able to get there a lot quicker.
Yes.
And I'm kicking myself about it. But, hopefully anyone else out there listening, ask for help, get started.
Absolutely. And I think another key point is that you will find even people in the same industry as you, they don't see you as a competitor. They don't see it that you're trying to take business off them. There is enough clients out there that we can have our own.
Yes, correct.
And bookkeeper to bookkeeper, like I've made some amazing relationships.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's the mindset.
We both all pick each other up. So
the abundance mindset versus the scarcity.
Yes.
But hey, Christen, thanks for jumping on the podcast. I loved the stories that you've shared with us today. Hopefully someone out there is listening and they can be motivated to get started themselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So if you're about to begin your business journey or you're currently going through your business journey, tune into future episodes so that you can learn more and find a supportive community. Otherwise, follow me on LinkedIn for more.